Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Minefield. That's Keith.
And that's Gerry.
From the deepest, darkest recesses of Dangerous Nerds headquarters, Keith Moncrief and Gerry Kissel.
And we are in different places right now, so we're going to do this split screen thingy. I'm hoping that this works pretty well. This is interesting to do it this way because when I'm visiting my girlfriend, I'm out of town, and we can still do episodes. So I kind of like that. It gets me all excited. But
technology.
Technology. We live in the future. Actually, I said that the other day because it's now November 2019, and I was talking to some of the Blade Runner fans over on Blade Zone, and I'm like, yeah, we actually now live in the time of Blade Runner. It's not the future anymore. This is the time. And so, and of course, the first thing that comes out of somebody's mouth was, "Where's my flying cars?" When do I get to air out a replicant? So, let's go ahead.
Enjoy your noodles.
Yeah, exactly. I want to get my noodles in two, not for two. Anyway, that's a Blade Runner joke. Let's get into this real quick because this is an exciting week for the Joker. They broke $1 billion. And once again, this goes into something you and I talked about last episode, and we talk about all the time anyway, is how some of these films, and we're going to be talking about one in a minute, that put too much money into it without any planned marketing.
Yeah.
And this film, The Joker, was shot on a budget of under $70 million or $75 million, which included the marketing for the film.
Yes.
And they're killing it. It is the single highest, not grossing, what's the word I'm looking for? Where compared to what they spent, the profit, the highest profit on a film. And it's ridiculous. They spent under $100 million and have made over $1 billion now. And it keeps churning it out. And it's funny this week because, Christian Bale, Batman, beat everybody out with Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah, which I hear is a really good movie.
Yes, I'm so looking forward to seeing that movie, dude. I really am. But I don't know. I'm excited for the Joker. I don't know if there should be a sequel film. I know there's been talk about it. Apparently, the two of them, Todd and Joaquin, talked about it early, actually, where they might go. And of course, with this budget, with this $1 billion break, Warner Brothers is not going to let them walk away from not making a sequel. I guarantee you.
You know what, though? Good for them, first and foremost. I don't see them making the same mistake that Fox and Ryan Reynolds made with Deadpool 2. Because the first Deadpool movie was made for about 60, I think it's between 63 and 67 million. And in making the sequel, they made it for more. And while, you got an entertaining sequel out of it, I think it missed some of what comes with having a film that was made for not very much money.
Right.
And to me, that was part of the charm of that movie.
Yeah.
In not having a big overblown budget, the way that Fox basically had planned to do the next X-Men film after Deadpool, which was going to be the Gambit movie, which they were still looking at for $150 million. So, Joker's part of a a small list of comic book movies that have come out over the last 20-something years that have utilized their small budgets but have become very popular. Blade, the aforementioned Deadpool, and I think when you stick to it, when you have a vision, looking right at you, Star Wars and of course Star Trek, you work out pretty well, especially with small budgets. But for me, I think outside of the success overall in box office, I still think the best of those were the two Hellboy movies that Guillermo del Toro did, which were both made for under $70 million.
Yep.
So,
and they had a lot of effects in them.
Oh yeah, a lot of effects, but mainly a lot of creature effects.
Yeah.
A lot of it was done in camera.
I always include that in my effects, like all your in-camera effects, your prosthetic creatures and stuff. It just, Guillermo just knocked it out of the park, and both his films were so much better than the new Hellboy film, which I think the guy playing him was just fine, but they really should have stuck to formula and let Guillermo make his third movie.
Yeah, yeah.
But as far as the Joker goes, what are your thoughts on there being a sequel?
I don't think I would mind it, but I also think if they didn't have to do it, I would go ahead and just let this go, speak for itself, and be a nice standalone movie
and just keep churning out good films like this.
I think everybody needs to see this. This isn't just a Warner Brothers thing. This is a thing that I think even dare I say it, even the MCU should consider. They're taking the easy way out with the Disney Plus shows, but it actually shows restraint and forces you to become a better filmmaker when you only have one film to get it right. If you don't have to worry about sequels, if you don't have to worry about the contracts that come with sequels, I think you could pull off some amazing things. And there's a lot of properties out there that probably couldn't sustain a series, that having this done would be something kind of cool. So, I think this is good for the industry. Bad news for those particular people that seemingly are continuing to come out of the woodwork to badmouth comic book movies and MCU films in particular. Because now, now you're doing it rather cheaply. And so they're thinking that somehow threatens how they can make movies if comic book films are cheaper. I'm still trying to work that one out.
Yes, I saw actually someone who directed a comic book movie come out and criticize the films today. I'm just like, wow. Oh, John Woo.
Yeah.
Mr. Woo himself was criticizing how it's going. And we'll just see. We'll see what happens. I guess we can move on to number 2, which is, of course, The Mandalorian. Now, have you seen it yet?
Oh, my goodness. I have yet to see The Mandalorian, but let me at least tell you something, still as one of the last people on the planet that have not seen the show. I will say this. I really am starting to believe that the main reason why they put out The Mandalorian right now was to offset any and all bad news that would come from releasing The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, because there's so much bad news at every turn. I mean, we're just weeks now. We're 1 month away from the release, and Again, today, reports coming in, they're still reshooting some stuff. And it's like, oh my God, they're really going to take this to the wire. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to flop. I don't think it's going to work well. And this is just the pessimist in me. I have zero hope for it anymore.
I still think the film's going to do... Look, to me, a flop with these films...
It's going to be a flop by their standards.
Yeah. I think the movie's still going to do about 800.
They could even, globally break $1 billion. And it's still going to be a flop by Disney standards. And that's what I'm looking at it as, is what their expectations are. And I don't think Disney's going to get it. I think that the damage... What?
And that was the thing about Rian Johnson. A lot of Rian Johnson fans out there need to understand. Part of the argument against The Last Jedi is, The Force Awakens made $2 billion. Last Jedi only made $1 billion. So from that standpoint, Last Jedi kind of sort of under-delivered. And that's the reason why certain people, especially at Disney, were not as happy with The Last Jedi.
Well, of course, and on top of that, the toy sales tanked.
Yeah.
In fact, they're still tanking.
Yep.
But Mandalorian, I think, is going to sell some merchandise, and that show is awesome. I have watched it, and I got to tell you, one, I'm glad I spent the money because I enjoy Jeff Goldblum's show too, and
cool.
It's a good show. And Jeff Goldblum is so weird, and he's always got his hands up here, but ice cream is It's just, he's so entertaining, and but The Mandalorian's why I bought the account, and it's so worth the money. $6.99, $6.49, something like that a month. I'm like,
$6.99.
It's under, just under $7. I'd pay $10 a month for that, and we're getting it so cheap. And we've already got the first 2 episodes in 1 week. I thought we were going to get the third today because it was released last Tuesday, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And so I went up there expecting to see a new episode, and it's not up there. So I'm like, when are we going to get the new episode? I want to see episode 3. I'm loving what's going on.
More of that Mandalorian?
I'm telling you, dude, and I'm really looking forward to Bill Burr. He is absolutely one of my favorite living comedians. And cool. Him and I almost said the wrong name, Dave Chappelle. Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr are my 2 favorite comedians talking about people and things and shit.
Yeah.
They're the greatest critical minds, in my opinion, going today. After that, Norm Macdonald. But anyway, Mandalorian's killing it. I think that the reviews are coming in. Everybody's loving it. I have seen a few people kind of gnarly about it, but these are people I think that are just really butthurt over what happened with Star Wars. And it's like, it seems like nothing's going to please them at this point. Yeah. So it's not like I tune them out. It's like, I'm just telling them, you need to quiet down, because here's what's going to happen. You spread negative stuff about this show when it's not deserving of that negative stuff, you can hurt what they're doing. Because this was against, and you can't convince me otherwise, this was against Kathleen Kennedy's wishes. Because you got Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni in charge of this project. And those pictures of behind the scenes, and Kathleen Kennedy does not look happy in those photos, not one of them. Yeah. She looks almost like she's annoyed and doesn't want to be there. And and I'm expecting she didn't, because one, it's primarily focused on a male, but that's the target audience for Star Wars, which is what has always befuddled you and me. It's like, let me get this straight, Disney. You bought Marvel and you bought Star Wars because you wanted to get the boys to stick around for Disney. And then the first thing you do is you start making it for girls. And then you wonder why the boys just kind of go, oh, well, I thought you were going to make it for us, but okay, good luck. And they go on. And, of course, Disney panics. But there shouldn't have been any panic. It seemed like they had the idea. Bob Iger had that idea. And what's his name? The other guy in charge at Disney. I always forget his name.
Alan Horn.
Alan Horn. They seem to have the idea of why they were doing this, and then like they got it, and then they lost their minds and kind of forgot, and they put they kept Kathleen Kennedy in charge. And I've tried to explain to some guy the other day who was trying to argue with me. I said, Kathleen Kennedy was never tested. Her mettle was never tested in doing what she's doing. Kevin Feige was. Kathleen Kennedy wasn't. She was put in that position for one reason and one reason only, and Bob Iger confirmed this, in that George Lucas thought she had his back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, look at it this way. You know, this movie's happening. This movie's going to come out. Okay.
Star Wars. Oh, Episode 9. Yeah.
So ultimately, I think when you really look at it, who actually prospers if Star Wars flames out? Well, Amazon for one, because they have The Expanse coming, and that's coming soon. I mean, season 4 is happening soon. Okay?
Yeah, this December.
Yeah, December, I think it's December 12th or 13th.
Something like that, yeah.
Or 14th.
Yeah, it's just
one of those.
What, 3-4 weeks away?
Yeah, and that, again, if you've never seen The Expanse, what are you doing? Seriously.
It is, seriously, you and I talked about this last episode, I'm going to say it again, the best science fiction television since Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I believe it's even like tons better than Babylon 5.
Well, The Expanse is really what Enterprise should have been, in a nutshell. This is exactly what the series Enterprise should have been. And the way it's written is the way that the people behind Discovery, that's what they think they're writing. And they're not.
It's sort of like if a 5-year-old wrote what The Expanse was about. All right, let's move on to number 3.
Yeah.
Which is this is interesting news, but unlike you, or maybe like you, because I'm not sure where your pulse is on this. I think they're 10 years too late on this. The Willow sequel is now. This is only confirmed that they're in discussion, that they're in talks at Disney Plus of doing a sequel. I think this was a plausible thing all the way up to 10 years ago, but Val Kilmer, his health is going to shit.
Well, I don't think you really need a lot of the original actors. What
I do think you needed Mad Mardigan. I do think you needed Mad Mardigan to make it work.
Yeah. I think you could get away by modifying a few things, but here's the thing about Willow. Things weren't working out for a sequel. So what Lucas eventually did is he got together with Chris Claremont.
And wrote the book. That's right.
And wrote the books. And to me, from what I've heard, the books are really, really good. Dark, but good. And I think if their idea is to sort of use that as a jump-off point. Now, the series is really meant to be a jump-off point like 20 or 30 years later.
Right.
Which I think even is a little outside of the books. But if you use a lot of what the books and what George had originally thought of, and sort of built on all of that, I think you might have something. You know, it's not like you're trying to come up with everything whole cloth. There is now stuff out there. We now know where George wanted to go with this story. So, to me, I think that's to the good of putting something like this together. It's not like you're trying to come back after so many years apart and you're creating a brand new story on top of it. So to me, it's not as difficult as it would be to just create something. Because then you got to figure out, well, is the audience, will they respond in the same way? Are we writing the same way? Are we, all those
It's
questions.
almost at this point, I feel like maybe they should just do an entire series and start the story all over again.
Really?
I almost feel that way. Yeah, for it to work, I have my doubts of this working. I just have my doubts.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But we'll find out because they're still just talking about it at this point. But now on some more Disney stuff, and you just watched the video before we air. This I'm referring to it as Disney scandal, where Tarantino sounded off on Howard Stern over some of the handling of his movie in the theater and how Disney basically strong-armed the theater. And apparently they're buying up some of these theaters. And potentially, the way I see this is possibly as, I don't want to say the word corrupt yet, but it just feels like it's right in the same area as payola was with radio. Where there's...
It's definitely a strong arming tactic.
Well, because payola, what a lot of people don't understand, what was so devastating about payola was it did harm to independent labels. Mm-hmm. Because these larger labels were paying the radio stations under the table to play their songs over other music.
Yeah.
And to play it more during the hour. And that's sort of what this feels like to me. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're not wrong. It kind of feels like that to me. But I think Disney's just the first. I think everything
it's because
that
of those
Disney's
deep,
doing right now.
It's those deep pockets that you and I have talked about. Because of all the studios, they have the deepest pockets of any studio. And that could be such a promising thing because they could be more adventurous with their money, their capital.
Yeah.
Which is why they're putting these high-dollar shows on Disney+.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not making the money back yet. There's no way they are. But they're looking at that.
Of course.
They're looking at that.
Of course they're not making it.
They're looking at the long picture. You and I have talked about this before, and Craig. He's talked about this too, where Disney's in it for the long run.
Yeah.
Oh, that your thingy's blocking your face again.
How about that?
There you go. Yay! So, with that said, you were going to expand on the whole thing about how damaging this is for the studios.
It is. It is damaging because with Disney doing what they're doing, it's paving the way for other studios to consider doing the same thing. And eventually, what you're going to have is, you're going to have all of the remaining major studios think, well, if Disney can do it, we can do it, and we can get away with it. We can do whatever. I mean, that's always the danger. It's the same thing, like in many respects, kind of like when you have a particular technique in films become sort of like the it thing, like bullet time, and then
everybody's doing it right.
And it's just, I think other studios are going to look at this and go, I think we can get away with the same thing, because you're playing this game where, you either give us what we want or we won't let you have the next major thing that we have coming down the pike. And after a while,
it's such a nasty strong-arm tactic. It really is.
Yeah.
And you're blocking your face again.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. So, well, I kind of understand where Tarantino's coming from, and he got pretty upset about it. And if you haven't seen the video that we're talking about, it's Tarantino on Howard Stern talking about Disney strong-arming the theater, that he was trying to show a version of, what was it, Hateful Eight?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and he uses some very coarse language. Not like I've never done that. All right, on to number 5, which is, and I love using this. This is what I wrote down. Schadenfreude over Charlie's Angels' Dark Fate.
You know what? Let me at least say this. because I have yet to find anyone that if you really look at Charlie's Angels, this movie, they have not been marketing that movie very long.
And what did I tell you from the very first trailer? That movie's going to tank. Nobody's going to freaking watch it. It's a terrible trailer. They're not understanding the market, which is really, girls want to see it, but guys want to see it too. But when you start marketing it to where it looks like it doesn't want the guys to watch it, and then you go, well, it's the guys' fault that they didn't want to watch it. No, you didn't market it to us.
That's right. I mean, seriously, I have heard from people that have seen the movie, and they think it's actually rather enjoyable, which means that the marketing of the movie is really what's killing the film.
Well, it's also what killed Terminator, Dark Fate, because they were marketing, once again, the woke aspects of the film rather than just trying to show that it's going to be a good story. And I told you, if Tim Miller, the director, hadn't opened his big mouth, I bet you that first week would have been double what they made.
Probably.
But he opened his big mouth and threw a gauntlet down towards men. Men are bad. And it's like, okay, well, we're just not going to come see your damn movie then. And so he uninvited them from seeing his film.
Yeah, it to me, it's like, if you're going to blame men for not seeing your movie, how bad must your movie be when men obviously enjoyed going to see Atomic Blonde, when men enjoyed going to see Salt, when men enjoyed going to see Kill Bill, Volumes 1 and 2.
Well, they constantly have this narrative, and you and I have talked about this, where they try to make it sound like men are uncomfortable with strong women. It's like, dude, Alien had the main character was a woman, a strong woman that stood her ground with her senior officer. Followed up by Aliens.
Look at the spinoff from John Wick 3 that they're going to have. You know, it is just it's like, that's not a good argument.
I forget her name. The lady that wrote a lot of the Disney animated films. She basically called Hollywood out. She said they've got to stop making these strong women films and just make films with women standing their ground and staying side by side with their male counterparts. Not outdoing the male counterparts, but standing their ground with them. And because those films always do well.
Yeah. Because,
like you and me, you and I love films with these kinds of women in them. I mean, they have to have some sort of frailty. This is the mistake that Star Wars made with Rey, because Rey was unteachable. She didn't need anybody to teach her anything from the beginning.
If they had stuck with the way the character had been originally conceived by George Lucas, you know,
it would have been the same arc as Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
Not knowing what they're doing, kind of whiny, annoying, fails all the time, but learns.
Yeah, which is how everybody starts out when you don't know anything.
But instead, JJ goes with this whole she's a loner thing. So we don't actually get to see her know anything. We don't know why she can pilot. We don't know why she has these attitudes, because we don't have anybody for her to interact with other than that one alien that she trades with.
It really does seem like any and all pretense to actually create good storytelling, to be able to fill out the personalities of a lot of these new characters, is definitely not happening in these movies.
No.
All of these characters are hollow. They are all hollow because we don't get a chance to see inside, see who they are. We don't get a chance to truly do anything but try to identify with the surface of who they are.
Well, it's like the difference between a proper roast beef with vegetables, Star Wars original trilogy, to corn dogs.
Basically.
You know, it's like, yeah, it's tasty, but really it's the corn breading that makes the hot dog so good. The roast beef, the vegetables, and all that stuff is all delicious together, the gravy. And that's what George Lucas created with the original trilogy. And despite the stilted writing from the prequel trilogy, it's still a better story and better characters. You actually have a character arc.
Yeah, again, the only issue I have with the prequels is the question of why George didn't get better writers to write it. I have no other real problems with it because the story is good. It's just that the dialogue is so bad.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have taken that much to really improve the dialogue and to work it out for those movies to be a lot better than they came across.
You got me there. Yeah, I completely agree.
It is stunning how hollow these films are.
Yeah, and this circles right back around to Charlie's Angels, where it's about this virtue signaling rather than focusing on telling a good story. Because I've said before, there were morals and subtext in Star Wars George Lucas put in there, but we were okay with it because he told a damn good story. And I've said this many times because, like, you look at the Battleship Potemkin, that's a Communist Manifesto film, but I got to tell you, it's still a damn good movie because it's a hell of a story.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant film, and not to mention the cinematography. I mean, that's a silent movie, and it blows. I mean, that scene has been borrowed from in films, and going
the stairs.
Today.
Yes.
The stairs scene, and that film gave me nightmares as a kid because I saw it on PBS, but because I grew up watching good films. I was, even though I'm a popcorn kid, I love going to the cinemas. I watched a lot of European and old movies growing up on that stuff. And I understand the quality of storytelling. And this is something that is lacking heavily today. And the first
it's all about how stuff is meant to look good. See, this is the problem that I have with the J.J. Abrams style of storytelling that has been used in everything he's ever worked on, and of course is part of what Alex Kurtzman does.
After he stopped knowing how to write anymore.
Yeah, it's about if it looks cool, use it. Not if
it's also plot, because my problem with JJ is the fact that his stories are too plot driven, and he focuses way too much on the plot twists. And it's like you look at Into Darkness, was just one plot twist after another plot twist after another plot twist, and you didn't really have a story, and you didn't have a good story character arcs from beginning to end, and it was just devoid of any meatiness to it. And it's all this surface storytelling, and it's not good, which is why the movie didn't do well. And sadly, the last Star Trek film suffered for it.
Yeah, because that was decent. It was a decent movie.
I thought
Although, again, you're right. It suffered heavily. And really, by the time you get to the third movie of any film series, you should at least know something about the characters other than, hey, they pulled this maneuver in this film and did this thing over. It has nothing to do with who the characters are inside and what their motivations are, which is what you're missing with The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi should have filled all that out.
Well, when you go to it, too, the same thing goes for I enjoyed Force Awakens, but Force Awakens was also missing the proper use of the hero's journey. Because if you're going to try to recreate the cycle of the story, that circular storytelling that Lucas is very fond of, he's still stuck to the original Campbell hero's journey. And the hero comes from nothing, isn't looking for the adventure, but wishes that they had something in their life, then rejects the adventure, only to be forced to take the adventure when things go wrong, and then fails. And only at the end do they finally understand what it is they need to do and have success. And Luke's success in Star Wars was very small. He shot that one fucking shot down into that tube because he let go to use the Force. That one thing. And then you look at all the crap that JJ threw in for Rey. Just all this extra stuff they shouldn't have thrown in. And now we're hearing some of these things coming in that, like today, what was it I heard?
Spoilers.
What's that?
Spoilers for those at home.
Yeah. Before I say anything, definitely a spoiler alert. This might be true. It might be bullshit.
Yeah, it's based on a lot of rumor, but we just want to make sure that we're not spoiling anything for any of you.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
which is
spoilers.
And what they're saying is that she uses the power of all the Jedi to destroy the Emperor. And I said, are you freaking kidding me?
Well, and this is in response to the Emperor using his power to actually bring down a whole bunch of ships. Not one ship,
but a whole armada.
Yeah, and it's just like, look, obviously we're letting 7 and 8-year-olds plot these movies now.
They're just, it's so bad. And the worst one I heard was, no, actually, this isn't the worst one. This part isn't the worst. Is that the Emperor that we saw killed in Return of the Jedi was a clone. Yeah. And that the real Emperor is the one that's in this film, that he's been in hiding, preparing.
All these years.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he goes out like a bee. That's pretty much what he goes out like a bee. And it's just, come on, seriously? Are you serious?
It just, what we heard today, because Keith heard the same thing as me, it just sounded ridiculous. And it's like, if that's the movie, this film is going to tank so badly.
I mean, if that really is the story, you know what? I'm going to wait for the theaters to clear out a little bit before going to see it. I don't have to go opening weekend. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I don't have to go.
That's what I did with Solo. I went 3 weeks before I went to see it because I was not going to be part of that rush. And other fans did the same thing as me and didn't go. And waited to see it. And it hurt their business. It's like, look, man, if you shit on what we love, we shit right back on you by not giving you our money. And that's what's going to happen here if they're not careful. People are going to wait to hear what happens in the story, and then they're going to decide whether they go or not. And this could really hurt them.
That just means more people will be watching The Expanse, and more people will be watching Lost in Space, which actually comes out Christmas Eve on Netflix.
I'm still going to be watching them anyway, but yeah.
Yeah. Look, there's a lot to watch. And if Disney is not careful with the Star Wars stuff, they're going to end up just shooting themselves horribly in the foot.
Yep.
But at least, causing all this other stuff to become stuff that becomes something that will get a lot more of attention than it would have had it been just Star Wars about, cleaning up at the box office.
Exactly.
That's just, if somebody had told me a year ago that this was going to be the case, it's like, no, they couldn't screw it up even more. They'll fix it. And it's like, no, they haven't.
Well, I knew that we were going to have problems when JJ said that he did not derail, that Rian Johnson didn't really derail Star Wars. And I'm like, yes, he did. And that you're saying that really concerns me. But let's move on and talk about a little bit of news. Number 6 is this new CGI thing of resurrecting the dead. Where they're going to have obviously they're going to have doubles wearing the stuff to do these actors' roles, and they're going to CGI the faces of these dead actors. One being the dog story with James Dean, and then they had one about Burt Reynolds, and I can't remember who else they got brought up today.
Well, now, remember me telling you that this was actually something that came up in 97, where a film producer was wanting to make a movie with
John Wayne, wasn't it? Oh, Bruce Lee.
No, it was Bruce Lee. And another film producer had this plan that he was going to use George Burns in a movie and have him as a main character. This is like just a year after Mr. Burns had passed away, because he passed away in 96.
Right.
And he was going to make this movie.
Right after his 100th birthday.
Yeah. And it was just like, you know, in 97, I thought this was asking a lot. Now, here we are. It's 2019, and you still have that same dream, in a sense. I don't know. Personally, on the one hand, yeah, it's crappy. But if the family and the people that hold the rights to the likeness of said actor or actress are cool with it, that's fine. That doesn't obligate anybody to have to go and actually pay to see it. But
because I won't see it. I consider it disrespectful to the dead actor to have them in a movie that they did not agree to be in.
Yeah. And again, I think overall, John Wayne is the best candidate to pull this off.
Yeah, you were talking about that they had more footage of him through the years than any other actor.
Because of all the films that he's been in. If you go to IMDb or you Google him, look at the sheer number of movies he's been in. Now, think about technology the way that we have it today. The reason why we have to, like with the Fast and Furious movies, where you had to use the actor's brothers, is that there wasn't enough footage. He wasn't in enough movies to be able to capture him in the right way. And you didn't have enough stuff to be able to mimic his voice too much. You could use audio bits that you have to string together. John Wayne did enough work in his time in Hollywood. He literally could become your replacement voice for Google or any type of an electronic device that you have. He's recorded so much, and you could use that same program that you would do that with to even get him to say new words because of all of the stuff that he's recorded, both visually and in when it comes to the dialogue that he said in all of his movies. I'm telling you, if somebody's going to be successful, it'll be with John Wayne, because nobody else has
the sheer amount of footage,
sheer number of films. Yeah, you can do it. Do it easy, and be able to take him from any age, from 25 until at least his 70s, and that's pride right there. If you can take an actor and be able to do that with them, oh my goodness. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, what do you think? What actor or actress would you like to see them attempt to do it with that you think at least would be interesting? You may not be
this is the only thing. I do believe that I would like to see a revisiting of the classic Star Trek with the original actors as CG characters. The classic original series. I would love to see that. We've lost so many of them. And whoever's still alive, and basically do like what they did with Batman 66 with the animated shows, but do this with CG. I think that would be interesting. It would be, because I don't know how much like his daddy sounds, but we have Leonard Nimoy's son. I like that Jimmy Doohan's son played Scotty in the continuing series on the web.
Star Trek continues,
Yeah, I love that. And he did a spot-on version of his dad. It was really good.
So I guess then for Bones, it would have to be who would I get for Bones?
If he would do it, shit, the actor Carl Urban. But I don't know if he'd do it.
Yeah. Carl Urban. Well, Carl Urban's just cool anyway.
Yeah. I think he is the only member of that Star Trek cast that would probably do this. I don't think anybody else would even consider joining something like this. But Carl Urban is such a Star Trek fan, I think he'd do it.
Carl Urban is like this new generation's Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
He can do anything. He can do anything, and he's that cool at it.
And he's also a nerd. And because he loves this stuff. He doesn't just like being in it to make the money. He enjoys this stuff. He's lived that stuff. Simon Pegg's the same way. You know, Simon Pegg has been the clown prince of nerddom over in the UK for years.
Yeah.
So, but that's where I stand. I think the only way I would be comfortable with it is Star Trek, because these are established characters. It's not so much the actors, but their performance as that character. To cast like, I can bring Humphrey Bogart completely back. I want to make this movie where he's this, and it's like, no, I'm not good with that. I was cool with it with Brando with Superman Returns. I was comfortable with Olivier in Sky Captain of the World of Tomorrow. Even though he did not agree to be in that, there was something very respectful about that. That it wasn't like an in-person performance. You didn't see an actor walking around. Instead, it was just this talking head. And I thought that was kind of cool that they did that. But that's it. That's it for me. I guess we can move on to Henry Cavill news, which is number 7.
Oh, man.
Because he just did that Men's Health interview. And I read the interview.
Good interview.
Yes, it is. God, I love this guy. I really do. I don't just love him because he played Superman. He's the real deal. As a guy, he's a guy's guy, and he's down to earth. He's you can see why Jason Momoa loves him so much. Yeah, and I've heard people try to say, "Oh, he's a cad" and all this shit, and I'm like, I've heard him say things that show he's quite the opposite of that. He's a gentleman with women. He's very respectful with women. He's kind with people. And he loves fans. He loves it. And he loves being Superman. He just doesn't want to get jerked around by Warner Brothers, which is notorious for doing that with cast, with everybody. They jerk people around all the time. We've talked about it ad nauseum, what they've done to writers and directors. They are just, forgive me for saying it, because I'm part of Blade Zone, the Blade Runner fan club, and we have a connection with Warner, but that studio has really screwed a lot of people over. And
that's the reason why I'm very hopeful that AT&T running the show will be better. That's the reason why I think that really is, in my opinion, the only hope to get.
Well, because they're a customer service related company.
Yeah, and plus, it's no skin off their nose if that happens, because they weren't really running the company when the whole thing went down. So anybody gets butt hurt, it's not like AT&T's going to look around and go, "That wasn't us. We had nothing to do with it, so we can go ahead and release it."
I'm just hoping that they will work with Cavill and let him be in this Black Adam film. And here's why I think there's a possibility of it, and you know why as well as I do, is that The Rock's wife is his agent, and she is also Cavill's agent. And I'm telling you, The Rock is going to push to have him in his film. And you know he's going to push to have Henry Cavill in it. So here's crossing my fingers.
Well, Jason Momoa is also keeping it alive. He does not want to close the door on any of this stuff, and he's got some pull now that Aquaman is also a $1 billion film. And
they've already greenlit the production to come out in 2021 for his second film.
Yeah. I look, I understand some of the particulars when it comes to, things that I've heard from Warner Brothers' point of view about this, that it all really does come down to money. My thing is, I think you should be able to negotiate with Henry Cavill. I think you should be able to look at him and go, okay, look, you're wanting this amount over here. We're wanting to give you this amount over here. Meet in the middle, because eventually that's really the way this is going to work out. Meet in the middle and work this out. Because if Warner Brothers lets Henry Cavill get away, they will regret it in a way that not many performers suit the parts that they're known for. Love the character, love the fans. I think the only other person I've ever seen play to this level is Hugh Jackman. And Warner Brothers, this is your Hugh Jackman. Whether you want to admit it or not, this is your Hugh Jackman.
It really is.
Henry Cavill, you let him get away, and oh man, he ends up going to Marvel. You will regret this.
Yeah, buddy. Last thing is the news that David Fincher and Robert Towne have struck a deal with Netflix to do a prequel series to Chinatown. Now, I saw some negativity about it today, including from our friend Susan, which she appreciates, I think, my point of view, which is this. The Jake Gittes character from Chinatown and the two Jakes basically is a detective that wasn't adapted from previous source material, like all the other detectives were. The Thin Man, Sam Spade, Philip Marlowe. All these guys came from books. Jake Gittes was an original by Robert Towne, the writer. And I wanted to see more. And I know Nicholson did too, because Nicholson was the one that pushed to do the Two Jakes, the sequel.
Two Jakes,
And it was sad, because I think we would have seen more, because I think he wanted to do more. I think he wanted to do at least one more, maybe two more films. But Robert Towne and he split ways.
Had a falling out.
Yeah. And so we got the movie, mixed reviews. I think it's a great film. It's not as good as Chinatown, but it's a damn good film. That last scene with Harvey Keitel just really sticks with you. And
but everything about both those movies is iconic, and it is well done. To me, as long as the person who created the character, and in this case it's Robert Towne,
right,
is doing this, to me, I have no problem whatsoever with it.
And I said earlier, the only director that I would trust with this today is the one that they picked, David Fincher. Because David Fincher is a master of modern noir. And that's because of the influences of classic noir. And I think he understands it very well. So I'm excited for this. I'm actually excited for this because I love the character of Jake Gittes. What a cool detective. You know, the hard-nosed, taking photos of cheating wives, detective who occasionally gets embroiled in a serious thriller. And I just love that stuff.
Basically, a lot of you out there, if you've never seen Chinatown, well, guess what? You now have your work assignment.
Well, exactly.
This is your homework.
This is the quality of stuff. I'm expecting to see stuff like Deadly Passage, to not quite as pulpy as The Maltese Falcon, but I do expect to see some of the Sam Spade stuff, borderline to early Mike Hammer, and I know Mike Hammer too.
Love it.
This is really good noir detective stories with the hard-nosed detective falling in love with the wrong dame.
If you've never seen good noir, there's nothing like it. And again, there's a lot of you out there, a lot of you younger people out there that have never heard of these films. Give it a try.
Ridley Scott,
because you might end up loving it.
Ridley Scott has done it 3 times. He first did it with Blade Runner, and then he turned right around and he did Someone to Watch Over Me. Oh, wait, no, Black Rain, and then Someone to Watch Over Me. All 3 of those are actually really good modern noir thrillers.
That's right.
I really look forward to seeing David Fincher, because David Fincher, his biggest influence, Ridley Scott. So you know we're going to get some good noir stuff in here.
Oh.
So with that, I guess we've come to the end of our episode. I guess we need to give some shout outs. First shout out is to our friend John at Entertainment Hacker. Thanks, man. He's giving us shout outs all the time. I love his show. You should. It's usually me that comments on his page, but I know you agree with what I say because you know, when I speak for both of us, I always make sure that I'm not speaking for you out of turn. And I love his channel. I really do. Thanks, John. Another one goes out to our close friend, Susan Layton, over at 1428 Elm.
Love you, Susan.
We love you so much. We miss having you on the show. She's doing some amazing things, making changes in her career, and we are 100% behind her all the way. I'm so excited with the stuff that she has to say. And
next up is Gary Beekler at Nerdrotic.
Hell yeah, Gary. Now Gary's got a new one, and we talked about doing it this episode, but we'll do it next week. He's got a great episode on the current state of Doctor Who. That this does not look good for Doctor Who this new season. It looks just as woke and just as badly written. So, yay! Thanks, Gary.
Hey, looks like everybody watch The Expanse.
Yeah.
That's my cure.
More
for
Expanse.
It. Just watch The Expanse.
What? You don't want to watch Doctor Who? Watch The Expanse. And then, of course, another favorite of ours is Rob Burnett and the Burnett Network. The guy knows his stuff. Just nobody knows Star Trek like Burnett, man. And he's a knowledgeable guy when it comes to film, period. And then, of course, everybody at Geeks and Gamers. I love them. Yeah. And we also love, well, I do, and I think I introduced you to it today, CS Reviews over in Australia. He cracks me up with his stuff. His slang just slays me when he just makes fun of it. He's so sarcastic. And then, of course, our other favorite is the folks at Midnight's
Edge.
Yep.
Love you guys. You guys rock so hard.
Hell yeah.
Midnight's Edge.
If
you're not watching Midnight's Edge,
their educational videos in particular, not just their opinion pieces, but when they do these breakdowns of what happened, and they do this moment-by-moment breakdown, and you're just sitting there going, God, how could people not see this coming? Midnight's Edge, man. So we love all those channels. That's who we watch. With that, I guess that's Keith.
And that's Gary.
And we're out of here.
Stay up our lawn.